on First Post. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Le Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina steps down amid pressure from the army. Celebrations in the streets of Dhaka as she flees the country. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer holds emergency meeting as far-right riots escalate across England over the murder of 3 children in Southport last week. West Asia remains on edge as Iran says it has the legal right to respond to the killing of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, an attack blamed on Israel. And stock markets across the world tumble as fears of a US recession sends investors fleeing from risk while speculating rate cuts to rescue growth. And the World Health Organization considers declaring an international public health emergency due to a worsening mpox outbreak in Africa. Hello and welcome. We start with Nigeria, where tensions continue to simmer as protests against the government continue. Nigerian security forces continued an intensive crackdown on rallies over the weekend as thousands continue to take to the streets. Nigerian authorities fired bullets and tear gas at protesters and even at journalists covering the protests against the economic crisis. According to Amnesty International, at least 50 journalists were arrested in Abuja over the weekend. Addressing the nation for the first time since the protests erupted, President Bola Tinubu urged citizens to suspend the rallies and for the bloodshed to end. He also called on young activists to hold dialogue.
The president of this country, I must ensure public order in line with the constitutional oath to protect the lives and property of every citizen. Our government will not stand idly by and allow a few with a clear political agenda to tear this nation apart. Under the circumstances, I hereby enjoin protesters and the organizers to suspend any further protest and create room for dialogue.
President Tinubu said that he understands the pain and frustration driving these protests and listed out the measures his government is implementing to tackle the crisis. However, Nigerian activists were not satisfied with the president's assurance. They have resisted his plea to end the protests.
From the speech that the president has made so far, if he doesn't address the needs of the Nigerian people by reducing the fuel price back to 200, bringing back subsidy, reducing the cost of education, opening the borders, then he has not spoken.
We are still going for protest today. Maybe with his cabal, we can make another sitting round table to make a good decision and good movement. That's what we do. Today, we are making grand. We are doing share service here today. Tomorrow, we are still going. That 10 days, I'm sure that 10 days, if you don't answer out, we have moved further.
In his address, Tinubu blamed people with a clear political agenda behind the violence and said they would be resisted by security forces. At least 13 people were killed in clashes with security forces on the first day of protests on Thursday. As per reports, 3 people were killed in a rally in Nigeria's second largest city of Kano on Saturday. Nigerian police, however, deny using excessive force and say only 7 people have died so far. As per the police breakdown on the death toll, 4 have been killed by an explosive device during a march in northeast Borno State. 2 were hit by a car and another was shot by a guard when protesters looted a shop. Police have blamed the Islamic movement of Nigeria of infiltrating the protest, while around 700 people have been arrested in the first 2 days of demonstrations and have been accused of armed robbery, arson, mischief, and destroying property. Protesters have meanwhile blamed the authorities for turning their peaceful protests deadly.
The two-pronged approach of violence and propaganda has failed. The violence and repressions are just attempts to silence and control us, and the propaganda cannot sway or fool us. The struggle for a new and better Nigeria continues. We must not be tired. The future of Nigerians depend on our determination at this moment.
Africa's most populous country, Nigeria, is suffering its worst economic crisis in a generation. The inflation is at a 28-year high of over 34%. The crisis emerged after President Tinubu ended a fuel subsidy and currency controls more than a year ago. These measures were supported by the US-based World Bank and International Monetary Fund to revive the economy. However, the measures have dealt a heavy blow to Nigerians. Food prices have soared and hunger is worsening. Protesters have vowed to push ahead with the rallies, which are planned to run until the 10th of August. How will President Tinubu deal with the challenge? Now, for more on this, we have with us David Otto, a security and political expert who is joining us live from Abuja. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the hashtag End Bad Governance protests continue in Nigeria, and the protests have turned deadly. What systemic issues have contributed to the persistence of the protests against the bad governance in Nigeria? How do these protests connect to the broader socio-economic challenges?
Well, as you rightly said, the protest was tagged bad governance, ending it, of course, because a lot of Nigerians today believe that the fundamental socioeconomic issues that they're experiencing, especially the hyperinflation, the high level of cost, the ending of the fuel subsidy cost when the president announced on the 29th of May during his inauguration that, a fuel subsidy was dead on arrival when he arrived, when he got into power. That had a ripple effect. Of course, the economy was already bad. But the increase in the price of fuel then, led to a ripple effect where the prices of goods, the cost of transportation, the daily lives of Nigerians, became extremely difficult, for people to survive, on a daily basis. So this decision, this policy and fiscal decision that was made by the president, he gave very good reasons why he thought the fuel subsidy had to be ended. He talked about the level of corruption that existed within that sector. Yeah. He talked about renewed hope, trying to revive the economy as per the last administration. Mind you well, the last administration is the same political party, the All Progressive Congress, which the current president inherited. Yeah. He has continuously blamed the situation on the previous government. But as we speak, Nigerians are experiencing a very high level of hyperinflation, and the cost of everything has become so expensive and unbearable.
Right. Now, David, who are the key organizers behind the End Bad Governance movement? Is it mainly driven by Gen Z? And what strategies are they employing to sustain momentum and to mobilize supporters and also maintain peaceful demonstrations?
I think one of the biggest challenges that this government has had is to be able to determine who are actually the organizers of this protest. This seems more or less a protest that, some have claimed the organizers are hunger, the organizers are bad governance. So they've listed some of the fundamental issues and said, these are the organizers of this protest. We don't have any leaders. The people that are leading us are the economic and social issues that they are experiencing. So a lot of the protesters are claiming that there is no actual leadership, but what has actually propagated the protest to this point is that the social media, the TikTok, Facebook, X, Instagram, all these, Internet of Things, has spread around the country, and a lot of people, are generally angered, by the situation that they are experiencing on a daily basis. So these mediums have just acted, as some kind of a forum to spread the information around. But remember that the government was given enough time to think about what responses that it could give, to the people of Nigeria. But it did focus a lot on trying to persuade or to dissuade, Nigerians from going out in the street. I mean, the government acknowledged that protest is a constitutional right, but they kept insisting that these protests will be hijacked and they will turn into riots. People are going to hijack the protests, and hoodlums are going to make it look like what happened in Lekki, in the previous protest, EndSARS. So the government has been trying to dissuade people rather than trying to make sure that it could respond to the fundamental issues which have been propagated on social media.
Yes, absolutely, David. And on that, how has the Nigerian government reacted to the protests? We have seen some kind of sign of dialogue, willingness to address the protesters' demands. What actions have been taken to address the demands and to prevent violence or further clashes?
Well, there has been two dimensions, actually three dimensions that the government has taken. The first dimension is that the government has tried, to propagate the narrative that the protest is not actually a genuine protest, that there are some individuals who are bent on actually taking advantage of the protest. We've seen young people that are carrying what looks like a Russian flag, but it is actually a military flag, insinuating in the part of the north that they do want the military to take over. So the government has used this narrative to say, listen, people are not really going out in the streets, to protest against hunger. Of course, there are people that are hungry, but they're saying that, people are taking advantage of this, especially talking about, IED, improvised explosive devices, exploding in the part of the north. But from, moving away from that narrative, which the government has painted out very strongly, that, people shouldn't follow the protest, the government has also deployed a lot of military personnel, police officers, but they've been very clear that these officers are there to protect, they are there to ensure that this protest is not being hijacked. I mean, remember that the government had actually come up with a report by the Department of State Security saying very clearly that they had identified individuals who were bent on, infiltrating the protest. And that has been demonstrated in some areas in the north where, places have been looted and clashes have occurred between the military and the protesters. The last measure that the government has done is the speech which the president actually made. And in that speech, he talked about the pursuit of dialogue, that he wants, the protesters to resort to dialogue rather than, go on the streets to protest. But one fundamental issue that a lot of Nigerians are saying is that he did not actually address the underlying issues and propose any solutions that would make the protesters to retire.
Absolutely. David, thank you very much for your valued insights there and bringing us all the latest on the protests in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Shifting focus to Mali, the junta-led West African nation has cut diplomatic ties with Ukraine after Kiev claimed its role in the heavy defeat suffered by Mali's army and the Wagner troops last month. Ethnic Tuareg-led separatists claimed a major victory over Mali junta and its Russian allies on the 25th of July, after 3 days of intense fighting erupted in Mali's north near the Algerian border. Separatists said that they had killed 84 fighters from the Wagner group and 47 Malian soldiers, while Russian mercenary group Wagner and the Malian army admitted their heavy loss. Days after the fighting, Ukraine's military intelligence agency spokesperson said that Kiev provided the separatists necessary data that allowed them to carry out their operation against the Russian war criminals. Mali's military government says it is shocked to learn of remarks by Ukraine's military intelligence agency spokesperson. While announcing the cutting of ties on Sunday, it said that Ukraine's actions had violated Malian sovereignty and constituted unacceptable foreign interference and support for international terrorism. This follows a move by Senegal, which on Saturday summoned the Ukrainian ambassador for publishing a video in support of the deadly attacks against the Malian army and the Wagner group. Despite the heavy losses, Russian Foreign Affairs Minister Sergei Lavrov reaffirmed his support for the junta in a telephone call with his Malian counterpart this week. Russia's Wagner group is present in Mali since 2021 after the military coup. It is helping the army in its fight against the separatists and the Islamist insurgents. Now, Mali, along with the junta-led neighbors Niger and Burkina Faso, has grown closer to Moscow and drifted away from traditional Western allies like France and the US. Meanwhile, Ukraine has also attempted to counter Russia's growing influence in Africa. It has opened several new embassies in the continent as it's forging military and economic ties with nations. Ukraine troops are also believed to be active in the ongoing Sudan war, operating against the Wagner troops who are accused of supporting the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Kiev is yet to respond to Mali's move to cut its diplomatic ties, but from what it appears, the battlefield of the Russia-Ukraine war has expanded from Europe all the way to Africa. From Mali, we move to its eastern neighbor in Niger. Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists have taken 2 Russian nationals hostage. In a video released on the terrorist group's media platform, 2 Russian nationals say that they were taken captive by Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists while working in the Mbanga in northeastern Niger. The 2 men were seen in traditional local clothing, speaking in front of a backdrop made out of traditional West African cloth. The video did not include a ransom demand. Now, reports say the 2 were taken prisoner a week ago while visiting gold mines in Mbanga, an area around 60 kilometers west of the capital Niamey. It is located in the gold-rich Tillaberi region, where terrorists linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State are active. If their account is confirmed, they would be the first Russians in Sahel, believed to be kidnapped by Islamist terrorists. Now, despite a strong and growing Russian presence in West Africa, in June of 2021, armed men abducted 2 Chinese nationals in Mbanga. They were freed 9 months later. In May of 2022, 3 Italians were abducted by the regime and were released in February of this year. Now, the Islamist groups have been abducting hostages for ransom to fund their operations and to expand their presence in the region. At least 25 foreigners and an untold number of locals have been kidnapped in the Sahel since 2015. Last month, Russia advised its citizens against traveling to Niger and Mali, citing the security situation there. The junta-led states have sought assistance from Russia for security as their ties with the West, especially France and the United States, have deteriorated. Russia has sent shadow mercenary group Wagner to the Sahel region to assert its influence. Wagner troops profit from seized mineral riches in exchange for their security services. Niger, like its junta-ruled neighbors Mali and Burkina Faso, has been fighting a deadly jihadist insurgency for years now. All these juntas justify the coups by the need to restore order, but they have been failing to contain the attacks by the Islamist terrorist groups. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. Imagine a place where carpets aren't just floor coverings, but symbols of economic revival and community empowerment. Welcome to the Beira, Egypt, where the carpet industry is doing more than just weaving silk threads. It's weaving a brighter future for its residents. Our final report gets you all the details about how the community is being uplifted one silk thread at a time.
No business is inherently big or small. It's the intention and sweat behind it that counts. After all, in a world where no one can predict what will soar and what will crash, why not give it a go? Business ventures are like high-wire acts without a net. As the old saying holds true, no job is too small or too big. Take, for instance, a charming business in Egypt's Beira region that's turning lives around one silk thread at a time. This isn't just any carpet business, it's like a silk carpet extravaganza. Forget those soulless machine-made rugs, these beauties are handcrafted using homegrown silk. Beira's silk carpet industry is the ultimate do-it-yourself operation. Tiny workshops buzz with activity as workers breed silkworms. They manage cocoons and extract silk threads. These threads are then woven into carpets so magical that even Aladdin would be jealous.
We are a town of Beira City. The project started a while ago, and now this project has become the main industry in this town.
But unlike Aladdin's instant magic carpet, this process is far from instant. Workers coddle silkworms for 35 days until they spin cocoons. Each cocoon coughs up around 900 to 1,000 meters of silk thread.
We boil the water, put the silk in it, and it takes around 10 to 15 minutes. Then we take it out of the hot water, put it here to extract the silk threads with the machine.
It is then painstakingly woven into carpets. The final masterpieces are flaunted at fairs, exhibitions, and even shipped off to international buyers. In the past 5 years, this silk carpet venture has become an economic game changer. By cutting out the middlemen, locals are pocketing more cash and securing their financial futures. Women in particular have found employment and empowerment through this industry.
We are simple people in the town. The role of women was so marginal in the community. Now if you check the carpet-making workshop, you'll find that 95% of the workers are women. Women used to stay at homes and be housewives. But now they are creators, producers, and outstanding because now they produce carpets that are exported. This is the message we want to deliver to the society, that we make a living with dignity and honor.
If this silk success story spreads to other towns which are in desperate need of jobs and economic revival, it could become a shining beacon of hope. The skilled artisans of Beira could share their magic touch by helping other communities weave their way to prosperity. Beira's silk carpet industry is proof that with a bit of passion and a lot of hard work, small businesses can make a huge impact. Local initiatives can spark broader economic and social benefits, offering a roadmap for other communities to follow.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Welcome to Fast and Factual. My name is Otto and here are the top stories of the day. We begin with the biggest headline from South Asia. Chaos in Bangladesh has reached a new peak. The latest reports coming in say that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina may have stepped down amid the ongoing protests in the country. Sheikh Hasina has reportedly also fled Bangladesh and is possibly en route to Helsinki in Finland. Bangladesh has been facing violent protests for weeks now over reservations in jobs. Reports of Sheikh Hasina stepping down came after the Bangladesh army chief held a meeting with all political parties. The Bangladeshi